Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Musings with Yoyo. Today, I am excited to be joined by my girl, my friend, my boo, Udokam. Woo woo! It's going to be a good conversation. We're both also Nigerian, so go ahead, Naija. I'm very excited. I'm glad to have you on here. Finally.
I know. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. How's your day going?
Pretty good. It's hot. It's hot in here. I have a fan going. The day is good. COVID times, nothing too out of the ordinary. Just working from home, chilling, staying hydrated, staying moisturized, staying sunscreen.
Yes, you're looking good and moisturized.
Thank you.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm chilling in Toronto. I heard Vancouver weather was extremely hot. It's been hot in Toronto, but not as intense as I expected.
Listen, I walked out with a cleavage the other day and my entire cleavage is red, okay? So don't be playing those games in 33 weather.
Oh, wow. 33. Yeah, I guess I've had about maybe one day that's been 33 degrees since I've been here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yesterday was 33. I've been outside all weekend, so I've definitely got my fair share of sun exposure, for sure. For sure.
So, for people who don't know, how do we know each other? How do we meet? All that.
Oh my God, our friendship was so slow. I don't know if you remember, but we met through Funke. Hey, girl.
Hey.
And I was at work because I used to work at the mall at Town Shoes. And I came into work and Funke was like, this is Yoyo. I was like, hey. And then she's Nigerian. I was like, ooh, hello. And then we were like, oh my God, let's stay in touch. And we wouldn't hang out outside of that. But every time I'll see you at the mall and I'll see you at Town Shoes and you come by and say hi. But we never even clicked to say what's your number?
Yeah.
Let's hang out. And I don't know what day it was, but it was definitely a Sunday that we looked at each other and we're like, can we just hang out already? What? It was almost a year after the first time I met you, but yeah.
First of all, you saying I used to go into Town Shoes all the time, I have money for Town Shoes. I'm going to let everybody know I did not. I was usually at the mall because it was a shortcut through to the SkyTrain. I'm all about shortcuts to the subway or whatever it is you call it. But I remember actually when we decided to eventually exchange numbers, Funke was in town again. And we were hanging out with that guy. We're hanging out at his house.
Oh my gosh. Starts with a T. He was Nigerian.
Yes, he was also Nigerian. We're hanging out at his house. You're like, we should probably just exchange numbers or actually hang out outside of Funke having us hang out.
Yeah. I remember so clearly. Look at me out here thinking you were coming to Town Shoes to say hi, but you were just shortcutting to the train. That's okay.
I always stopped at Town Shoes to say hi, but my existence in the mall was only based on that shortcut.
That is true. I do take that shortcut now, and there's no Town Shoes there anymore.
Yeah, I saw that they had a discount. That was the only time I could afford anything there.
Listen, that's for real.
So I have a few questions for you, but this is going to be a good conversation, just catching up and all of that. So like I mentioned, you're Nigerian. Were you born and raised in Nigeria? Whereabouts are you from in Nigeria? All of that stuff.
Yes. So of course I was born and raised in Nigeria.
Hey.
So basically where I'm from is always so complicated for me because I don't even I know culturally it's where my dad's from, but I don't have that association necessarily. So I was born in Enugu.
Okay.
And I lived a little bit in Port Harcourt. Yes, I said Port Harcourt because
I used to live there. I still can't say it. Well, when I say I lived there, my dad, when we came back from Oman, our family lived there. I was in boarding school at the time, but every time I'd go home from boarding school, I also can't say that Port Harcourt. I used to go back, so.
I tried once when I was in university here to say, whereabouts? I was like, Port Harcourt. That's so weird.
It's so hard to say it. Yeah.
It's so hard. And then I also, went to, secondary school in Abuja, and I spent, I want to say 7 years in Abuja. So because my time was so split between those 3 different states, it's hard for me to pick where you're from, but I am Igbo and my dad is from Udo in Mbise. And so that's where my village would be.
Okay.
But yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay.
And you spent most of your time in Abuja or back and forth?
I spent a lot of my time in Abuja. And that, like, basically from the age of like 9 to when I left the country, I was in Abuja. But I'll always go to Port Harcourt to visit people. My mom works in Port Harcourt, so I would just go back for like holidays and stuff. But for the most part, I was an Abuja girl.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And my brothers went to school in Abuja for a little bit. To
Which
boarding
one?
school. Loyola.
They went to Loyola?
Yeah, they were very smart kids. I failed the test. I failed the exam for Loyola. I knew I was going to fail.
Because I went to Nigerian Turkish.
Yeah. Sure.
Yoyo and Nigerian Turkish were like sister schools. They were like even two schools are like really close. Okay. I don't know if they remember like the tragic incident with the plane crash that happened.
Yes. It was literally just after we left Nigeria.
Yeah. It was so funny because I was supposed to be on that flight. I know. I know. It was so wild. That's how close we were because we were all going to fly together. And we were so excited. And our school extended our stay by a week. And we're all like, no. Oh. The lit time on the plane. Like, we're all lit anyway. Yeah.
Damn. Near miss.
Sometimes count your blessings, you know?
Yeah. Look at God. Do you go home often?
That's a great question. No. It took me 9 years to go home after I came here. Yeah.
9 years.
9 years. Yeah. I don't even know why.
Yeah. Why?
Sometimes it be like that. Like sometimes time just like flies. You're like, because when I first came here, I came with a return ticket. So I was supposed to go home after a year. And then the year came by and I was living my best life, making new friends, feeling fresh, you know?
Yeah.
I'm in the land of Onyibo people. So I was just like, like, I'm not coming home for a little bit. I'm making friends. And then a year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by. And then like visa things started happening. So I couldn't go home for like 2 years. And then before you know it was 9 years. And I was like,
wow. Mm-hmm. And also, if you think about like all the like there, a lot of times people will leave and think about all the other places they've never been to, they want to visit. Exactly. Yeah. So if you have vacation time, you're like, do I go home to Nigeria or do I see a place I've never seen before?
Listen, I went to like a lot of European places. I went to the States. Then I was like, you know what? I need to go back to my roots. What am I doing my tourism dollars? So then I went.
So when you went back, was it a culture shock? What was it like going back home?
Oof, nothing has changed. So when I went back home, it was just like, yes, I remember you. Like, even from the airport, the minute we landed and like you're going through security and like the bribing starts, I'm like, oh yes. This is the Naija I left behind. Hello. And then like the rowdiness of the airport and like trying to get your bag, you're trying to get a SIM card. The heat. And I traveled back with my partner and we flew in from Tanzania. And so it was like I was already kind of adjusting because we're in Tanzania. I was like adjusting to the heat and adjusting to like the pace. And then back to Nigeria, I was like, Nigeria is just in its league of its own. Like, you know, especially Lagos. Because I didn't grow up in Lagos, a lot of Lagos is still new to me. Like I went to Lagos like twice the time I was in Nigeria. And so and like getting on like the biggest shock to me was Uber. I was like, oh my God, we have Uber.
Right, there's Uber. And this was before we got Uber in Vancouver too. Like everywhere and their aunties got Uber before Vancouver. But that's a side piece that I have with a side beef that I had with how long it took us to get Uber just before I left.
It was, and like not only did we have Uber, it worked. Like I think that's the piece that like I try to check myself because I'm like, what part of me is speaking right now? But it's part of me that knows Nigeria. Like we have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of things. It just don't work very well.
Yes.
And so the fact that Uber worked and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I was so floored by it. Even though, you know, it took like 30 minutes to get your Uber, but it arrived and it took so yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So you said most of it was exactly the same. You were surprised by some of the things with like Uber and stuff. Are you planning on going back?
Yes, I was gonna go back this year actually. Okay. But you know, COVID. I was gonna go because my dad turned 70 this year in December.
Oh, congrats to him.
Yes, the big 70. And we're gonna go for a surprise birthday. So Dad, don't listen to this. For a surprise birthday party for him, but I don't think that's gonna happen because who knows what's gonna be like in December. But I highly doubt COVID's gonna be gone by then.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and even with like, even if with it getting better, vaccinations and things like that are not necessarily the best.
And you know how Nigerian parties are. Like, where is the social distancing?
Yeah, like what is social distancing? What do you mean distance? Yeah.
Exactly. It's not gonna.
So, okay, so you moved from Nigeria and then you came to Canada. What brought you? Why did you choose Canada? Because a lot of people, it's only recently I have found that Nigerians are talking about moving to Canada. Before then, a lot of people talked about going to Yankee or Jan, like US or UK. What brought you to Canada?
Listen, it's a very long story. But basically, you know,
tell me the long story. I got time.
You know how Nigerian parents like love to like they work really hard to like send your kids to a different country to study. A lot of it is a legacy of colonization and also corruption in our country due to like the lack of funding for education systems. Like a whole lot of stuff. I mean, our universities are still great, but there is still that like little bit of oomph that your kids studied abroad.
Yeah.
And so my mother is of that mentality. And so like my brothers were sent to the UK, Scotland, and London to study. And it was very much like, you're the last child, so you're going to go last. And you're going to go to the UK. That was it. There was no, North America was not in the picture. And I think a lot of that has to do with like the blatant racism that we receive in the news. So like, and like police violence and stuff, even from a young age, I knew that my mother was like, nope, you're not going to America.
Yeah.
And so when the time came for me to go to the UK, I think actually when I graduated high school in Nigeria, I went to Scotland for a little bit.
Oh, and you did?
Yes, I was there for 6 months and I took the test at my brother's high school there because that's just how it works. You go for like a year of high school and then you go into university.
Okay.
And I did the test my brother's had. I think I failed the test, to be honest. We haven't talked about this until today. I think I failed the test. Then I came back to Nigeria and like I think my visa got denied or something like that.
Damn.
I'm not really sure what the process was, but I woke up one morning from a nap, well, one afternoon I should say, from a nap, and my mom was like, hey, go to this hotel. There's like an exhibition of schools like abroad and go check it out. I think it's Canadian school, she said. So I went to the hotel, just me, and I was so annoyed because I really wanted to go to school in Nigeria. Like I had a Nigerian boyfriend, I had friends, you know. I was like
the high school boyfriend.
I was like, you can't take me out of this country. Like my life is here, my heart is here. The love of my life. So I went to the hotel. I was just kind of like annoyed and being like a teenager. Yeah. And I was in all the schools and I was like, whatever, I'll just pick a brochure and just say I came, right? I picked a brochure. I didn't even check what school it was. I was like, I went to the things. It wasn't that great. He was like, what? Let me see the brochure you picked up. And so I looked at it. She looked at it and she was like, okay, cool. I didn't know this woman went behind. So I applied to the school, did everything.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then she was like, hey, we need to go to Lagos and do your like test and your screening and stuff for your visa. I was like, what visa? She's like, Canadian visa. I'm like, Canadian visa. Now, you know, you didn't have a say in the matter. So I went to Lagos.
Of course not. She's like, get in the car. We're going in the car.
Exactly. Going to the airport, you're taking a flight. you're getting to Lagos.
I arranged room and board for you. Yeah.
And so I did all of that. And before I knew it, I got my visa for Canada. And she's like, oh yeah, you leave for Canada June.
Oh, wow. What school was it?
So if I had paid more attention, maybe I would have picked a better school. I went to Canadian International College. If y'all know CIC, if you're listening to something know CIC, hit me up. Because there is Colombian International College and there's Canadian International College. They're both called CIC. One is bougie than the other. So the Colombian one is like a full like actual like school with like dorms and stuff, and it's like huge. They have like so many activities, so many teachers. Like it's like bougie. It's like what you see on TV, like private school. Like right. And then Canadian International College is definitely, it's more ratchet sister, where it's very much like, my mom dropped me off at school. When the taxi drove in, she was like, oh, is this it? Like, it's very much like one level, 4 teachers, the person that was our cook was also the cleaner, was also the maintenance person.
Oh, wow. Multi-talented.
Listen, the dorms were houses different across town.
Oh.
So there was 2 girl houses and 2 boy houses.
Okay.
And it was like a 4-bedroom house with like 15 people living in it.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Wait, so is it a high school or is it what kind of school is it?
I would say it's like a university preparation school. It's like a grade 13. However, there are people that were there at like a grade 9 level. So like it depends on how young you are. So I had a friend who was like, because when I got there, I was 17 and this friend was 14, yeah. And so she stayed 3 years there because she was too young to go into university. So she did finish at a grade 9 level. But usually what it is, you come there for 6 months to a year and you do like 12/grade 13. Then you get your Ontario diploma and then you take the test to get into university.
Gotcha. Yes, I know a lot of Nigerians who went through that, but then now I don't know if it was the Canadian or the Colombian. I just heard of CIC.
CIC it's made a name for itself, but there's definitely 2 types. And the bougie one always made fun of us. Like if you went to the bougie one, like they laughed us out of the building because it was pretty bad. And we paid the same amount of money. Like we paid the exact same tuition.
Oh wow! I wonder why it was so different.
It was a ripoff, and run by a Nigerian man. Yep.
Say less. So then you went to CIC, got done a year later, and then did what? Or first of all, actually, what was that adjustment like to CIC, going from home to CIC?
I honestly didn't want to stay. The deal was, we'll check out the school. If I hated it, I'll return with my mother with my return ticket because it had an open date on it.
Okay.
And so she put me in the dorm, the girls' dorm, and she brought me like all the sheets and stuff I needed. She's like, oh shoot, I forgot towels. I'll be right back. And then she called me from the airport and said she's out.
Your mom, I'm dying.
So I had to adjust real fast. I think one of the best parts for me was when I arrived, because you don't know anyone. Like all these people are new to you. It's all these students that have been here for a while. The country is new to you. The currency is new to you. Everything is new to you. And so the best thing about that was like we're all West African. So we're either Nigerian or Ghanaian that were in that school. Okay. And so that kind of made you feel a little bit at home because you had people that understood exactly what you were feeling in that moment that you arrived. Right. And they were like we were all kind of like stewards. So the it's your duty to take the next person on and like take them to Walmart to buy groceries or buy whatever they need. Show them around, show them how to use the bus, how to buy a bus pass, all of that stuff. That was on you as like the older students. Okay. So people took me on like that. And like they made it feel comfortable. And so if I didn't go to CIC, to be honest, I feel like I would have had more of a shock to the system than I did. And then I realized the more I started exploring, and we all like went around in groups, we're always together. Like it was never like, I was never out on my own. Yeah. Only times I would experience any kind of like culture shock with folks looking at us. And I wasn't sure why they were looking at us. And I realized, oh, because we're Black.
Yes. And coming from a place like Nigeria where pretty much everybody is Black, you're like, oh, being Black is a thing?
Exactly. Like it took me a minute to realize that. And then I remembered all the information from TV and the news. And I was like, oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know they're just looking, they wouldn't say anything to you unless you're like close or just looking from a distance. And it's just very unforgiving. You're like, why are you looking at me? And we're all like 17, 16, 18-year-olds, not really, also trying to be teenagers and being loud and obnoxious and navigate this new reality, right? So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So then you went from, so you go through this whole process. It's like kind of like community building. It's a bit of a soft landing. And then you went to, so you got your Ontario diploma.
Yes.
And then what?
And then I went to UBC Okanagan.
Oh, UBC.
I found the warmest place on the map, y'all. I was like, Ontario winter is not for me. The first day of winter, we had a snowstorm. I stayed home. The principal was like, you have to come to school. I was like, oh, but there's snow outside. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? She literally pulled up in a car with a blanket, wrapped me up, and brought me to school. Till today, they remember. I was so dramatic in high school, y'all. I mean, nothing has changed.
Did you say was? Exactly. I was say,
She wrapped me up and brought me to school. And I was like, I am so cold. I am not staying here for another winter. And yeah, so I found the warmest on the map. They're like, oh, it's BC. That's going to be really warm. I was like, amazing. What's in BC? Like, what schools are in BC? Turns out one of the best schools in the world is in BC. I'm like, yes, that would make my mother very happy.
Yes.
So I looked into it and I applied to UBC Vancouver for civil engineering. At the time, I didn't really know what I was signing up for when it comes to UBC Vancouver. I mean, Yoyo, you know, it is huge. It is so big. And my friend, my best friend and I, Peter, hey Peter, and I and another friend of ours, Wayme, we were like, we want to go to UBC together. So we all applied to UBC Vancouver. And then Peter's parents immigrated from Nigeria to Canada. And we thought they were in Vancouver because everyone says like Vancouver, but it's really the greater Vancouver area.
Right.
Real talk, they were in Maple Ridge. Anyway. So, we thought they were in Vancouver.
So really they were in America. And it was like that far.
And so Peter was like, oh, I don't want to live in the same city as my parents. I'm trying to like have this like university life and be free and whatever. And I was like, that's true. So then we looked, and then Peter found out there was a campus called Okanagan campus. And I thought it was just like down the street from Vancouver.
Yeah, right. Not the case.
Not the case. So we like last minute switched application. Like I think the last day to switch, we switched it to Okanagan, and then we all got into Okanagan campus. Come to realize it's 4 hours away from Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different stolen lands.
Damn. Yeah. What a reality to find out after you've already like missed the deadline to probably change as well. But I mean, there's always a process of transferring if you ever wanted to do that.
Yeah, and then I realized how big Vancouver was, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I made the right choice.
Yeah, because UBC Vancouver's population right now is about 60,000 students.
Yes.
And Kelowna's UBCO is way smaller.
I think UBC Okanagan was 5,000.
Yeah, it's probably about 8,000 now, because of course universities continue to grow bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you got done at UBCO and moved to Vancouver. How long have you lived in Vancouver now?
I've been in Vancouver now for like almost exactly 7 years. I moved here on September 1st of 2013.
Oh. Yeah. I moved there September 1st, 2010.
Ooh,
yeah. September 1st. Yeah.
Yeah. I realized that school, it was like the new school year was starting and I wasn't going back to school because I had graduated. And I was like, what am I doing in my life? And I had no idea. And so I panicked, packed a suitcase, bought a Greyhound ticket, and came to Vancouver.
Oh, wow. You've been making decisions real fast.
Listen. When I'm on the move, I'm on the move. I'm like, pick a place. We're going.
Yes, I love it. I'm here for the conviction. It took me a year between deciding that I want to move to Toronto and actually getting to Toronto. Sure. Yeah, so I always love when who can up and go or pick up and go. I think it's very admirable. I don't have that trait. I am a processor. But I think it's admirable.
Better. You plan better because then when you get to the city, you're more equipped and more prepared. I get there and I'm like, damn it, this is not where I thought I was going, you know? And you make the best of it.
Yeah, it makes for an adventure. So what was it like moving to Vancouver? Do you like Vancouver now, I guess, because you've been there for a while, but what was it like moving?
At first, when I thought I moved to Vancouver, I actually moved to New Westminster.
So another mention there. Yes.
And I moved in with Thelma, Funke's friend. And so we basically like we lived together again, that safety net, that friend, that person to like help guide you around a new city. I feel like I've always been so lucky to have people like that in my life, and it's not something I take for granted. And I was exploring New Westminster. I was severely broke, like broker than broke. And trying to figure out like, okay, I no longer have this like safety net of my parents' finances because I was done school. And I had to figure out like what housing looked like for me, what a job looked like for me. And after studying civil engineering, I didn't realize at the time that I was so traumatized from that whole process that I didn't want an engineering job at the time. I just wanted to do something fun and not feel like I had to justify my place at a job. And I was always, I'm an extrovert, and I'm so good at talking to people and making friends. And so I was like, you know what, I want to do like a fun mall job. Like that's really what I want to do. I'm 23. Let's do it. And so I got a job at Town Shoes and Lush. And then I moved to my own place in New Westminster because, again, I wanted to stay close to my friend because I don't know about this life, but I had friends that lived in Vancouver. So every weekend I'll be at their place in Vancouver and I'll come back to my place on like a Monday evening or whatever. And because Town Shoes was part-time, I was able to like flex a little bit. Like I had a bit of like a social life where I was like checking out Vancouver on the weekends to see like, can I actually live here? Like, is it too big of a city for me? Because again, lived in Abuja and Enugu and Port Harcourt. They're kind of small cities.
Yeah.
It wasn't Lagos. And so like navigating a big city has always been like giving me anxiety a little bit because I'm not a big city girl. I know I'll be fine, but it would take some adjustment for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to check out Vancouver and see like how big is Vancouver and can I actually do it? And I checked out Vancouver, was like, oh, so small. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's really not that big.
Tinder would tell you that it's not that big. You have to listen.
Oh, I can't wait to hear Tinder tales. But okay, before you actually speak more on like your experience in Vancouver, so you get your civil engineering degree and then you start working at Town Shoes and Lush. How did your family feel about that? What were their reactions?
Well, you know, my mother is still praying for me. She was like, I'll just pray for you, you know. There's not much I can do.
Yeah.
Like you're making money. So like, but don't forget, I worked hard for you to get that degree. And it's also something that till today, it's still embedded in me. It's like, I have to give this degree a chance. I have to do something that's even loosely associated with my degree because my mother worked hard for me to get it. And it's okay for me if I don't like it, but I got to give it a chance. And that's kind of the mentality I have. And my dad really didn't care. My dad was happy to hear from me. He was just like, so tell me, what is Town Shoes and what is Lush? And like he would just, like about the fact that like we're talking and I'm like working and I'm keeping busy. So that, like the idle mind is the devil's workshop, you know?
Right.
Exactly. That's what he always say. And he was like, as long as you're busy, I'm happy. As long as you're busy, I'm happy. And so that was that for him. But my mother was always like, are you applying to more jobs?
That's like, you know what, as much as you're saying like you felt like you've had to honor the fact that she paid for your degree. I know, for example, I'm a heavy people pleaser, so just even disappointing my parents even a little bit is one of the biggest things that causes me anxiety. I get nervous about just even telling them, like, if they like blue and I tell them I like red, I like will think about how do I tell them I like red so they understand why I like red, my rationale. I'll like practice, I'll do a script just so that like, how did you, because immediately deciding, hey, I want to do something fun, how did you even like do it? Like, it's so bold in my opinion, especially like coming from a Nigerian household where a lot of focus is put on your education and the status that comes with that education. How did you do that?
I think, to be honest, I feel like no matter what I did here, my mother would tell her friends that I was an engineer. Like, I don't think it really, I don't think it mattered.
Yeah.
I don't think it mattered what I did. I could literally just like, I could be a dancer at a bar, and my mom would tell her friends she's an engineer, you know? And so I think that kind of took the pressure away from me a little bit. Like if like I think there was this understanding for me that my parents will still be proud of the fact that I got the degree.
Right.
And they will still be proud of the fact that I went through with it. Because my mom knew how hard it was for me. Like my first year, I called her like crying almost every day because I just felt I was made to feel so out of place. And so like she knew that process for me. And so I don't think it was a shock to her that I wanted to take a break from it. Like I didn't even want to hear a math problem. When I was done school, I was so like my soul was exhausted. Like I wanted to just do anything but engineering. However, I did go for like interviews, and I think I showed her that I was applying to jobs. I went for interviews, but the minute I walked in the room, because my name at the time was Sandra, right? So the minute I walked into the room, they were like, oh, you know. There was this like look on their face, and I knew immediately I wouldn't get the job regardless. If you entry level, no experience required, whatever the case may be, I knew I wouldn't get the job. And so that process in itself was also exhausting. So when she heard I got this other job without even talking to them about it, number one, she wasn't surprised because I was always a rebel. Growing up, she always told me like you have just always been a rebel. Number two, she knew how hard getting the degree was for me.
Yeah.
And number three, she was like, this doesn't have to be the job you do for the rest of your life. Like as long as it's temporary, she was like okay with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was that for me. And also in my household, like my mother being the sole person that was taking care of like school things, she didn't care about my grades. Like she didn't really care about like the actual like, wait, are you an A student? Are you an honor student? She didn't really care about that. She just cared about the fact that I was learning something and then I was moving up and I was going to graduate eventually. My father is the one that cares about grades and stuff, but he also cares about like your joy. He's like, whatever will bring you peace and not stress you out, do it. As long as it's temporary, do it.
Temporary joy.
Oh yes, temporary was definitely always underlined.
Gotcha. So before I actually, because I was going to ask you about like culture and like transitioning to Canada, but you did mention something that I was going to ask anyway, which is your name is, so you go by Udokam right now, but when I first met you, you were Sandra. What made you decide to change your name? Because Udokam was your middle name? Yes. Is your middle name? Okay.
Udokam is my middle name. So like, you know, like all Nigerians, we have 5 names. And Udokam is one of my middle names. And it was given to me on behalf of my father's mother, so my grandmother, and which is usually tradition. So your grandmas name you if you're lucky to have both of them still alive. And so both of my grandmas named me, but only one of them made it on my birth certificate, which is Udokam. Okay. And it's always my favorite name. I just love it because it just means like peace is better within.
That's beautiful.
Right? I feel less like a rebel because I'm just like, oh, like my name means peace. You know?
Yeah.
More grounded. But actually what made me do the change, I've always loved the name. I remember telling my partner, I was like, oh, this is my favorite name. And they got me a plaque that says the full name, which is Udokam. And
I've seen that.
Yeah. Their sister made it for me in Tanzania. Even though my mom named me just like the half of it, which is Udokam.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is so sweet. Like that was like the first symbol of someone embracing it for me. That I was just like, oh, this is like such a small gesture, but like meant so much. And then I was thinking, okay, if I should change my name, it's going to be too much work. Got to change paperwork. Folks are not going to be able to adopt a new name. I'll have to keep my name, and all of that stuff. And then as I continued to unpack the legacy of colonization within myself, while I'm fighting for like liberation, I realized that like I have to start within and I have to liberate myself. And so I asked my mom all the time, like, why did you name me Sandra? And she told me, she was like, oh, I named you after my pen pal, which is such a sweet story.
Interesting.
Yeah, sweet story, but it was after like a white woman pen pal. And
true.
And so I just could not feel connected to that. Like I was just like, I don't feel like, I feel that you're connected to this story, but I haven't heard about this pen pal ever since. And so write to her. Like, does she know that I was named after her?
Yeah, does she know you're around? Did y'all write to each other about that part?
You know what I mean? I haven't met her, you know?
Yeah.
So like, I just don't feel connected to the story. And then when I started thinking about it, I realized that I was very connected to Udokam, and I'm very connected to my grandmothers. Like they've moved past the physical realm, but in spiritually, I'm more connected to them. And I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go by Udokam. And I just like, first of all, I told my partner, I was like, I'm gonna go by Udokam. And I feel like ever since I said that to them, they have never called me Sandra. I was like, oh, wow. Did you just not like Sandra? Like,
they've been waiting.
Honestly, the switch was so fast. But yeah, and then I told friends, and friends were like so excited. They changed their contacts to Udokam. I told my mother, told her first, because she named me. So I wanted to give them veto it. And I told her, and she was like, oh, no, that's great. That's why grandmothers name you, because one day you may feel connected to the name, and that's what you want to do. That's cool. So she felt kind of honored that I was going to change to what my grandmother named me. I think like a random name should be upset, but because it was still in line and like still very much my name, she was like, no, this is cool. And so today, like my mom calls me Udokam, my dad calls me Udokam. I mean, he still says Sandra, but if it was to write it out, he would say Udokam.
Oh. Yeah. That's nice that everybody switched over so quickly. When I was younger, speaking about names that grandmothers gave you. My dad's mother wasn't alive when I was born, so she didn't name me. But the name my grandmother, my mom's mom gave me did not make it onto my birth certificate. I only have 2 names on there. But the name she gave me, I know I have 2, which is very odd, but they have the other names just like very not in writing.
Of you.
How very un-Nigerian, but to be fair, my full first name is Yoyo Udokam, and like really is there room for more? Yeah, but my grandma's name that she gave me, and I still probably will ruin it, is Amadi Ayagbon, and it's a Benin name. And when I was much younger, I'd be like, you guys can call me Amadi, and that was like the nickname I used to give myself. After a while, one time I was like, when we lived in Nigeria, when I was in elementary school, the people who let you to the gate at Shell, he came because I told him my name was Amadi, and then he came home to the house. Like, I probably forgot something. I don't know why he came, but he came to the house and he's like, I'm looking for Amadi. Mom was like, there's no Amadi that lives here. I don't know what you're talking about. So she's like, you need to stop introducing yourself as that, because that is like literally nobody's going to be like, oh, there's an Amadi that lives here. Like, let people know that's what your name is. So anyways, I had a whole like alter ego going on. But anyways, I'm back to Yoyo. But that's the name my grandmother gave me. And it means something, again, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it means something around like having no fear. And having no fear of like spirits and like blah, 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 blah. Again, Benin people, we strongly believe in witches. So I think, don't quote me on that. My parents are probably going to watch this and be like, why is she lying? This is not true. So I don't know, but I think that's what it is.
I want them to call you out when you post this, please.
Yeah, they watch every video. They're like, oh, I watched your video last time. I watched the video last time. So they watch every video. They'll probably watch this one too. I know when I tell tell my fans and I say tell my parents, I mean it.
Hey, Mama Eto. Hey, Papa Eto.
There you go. Respect. So you moved so Nigeria is and you and I have talked about this a lot, just like the differences culturally between Nigeria and Canada. So like Nigeria is very conservative in nature, and Canada is very not. What was your experience moving from a conservative place to a less conservative place? How did you handle that change? And do you find yourself ever going back and forth between those identities?
Yeah, I feel like it's like, that's a great question. Like, I find myself, I had to unlearn a lot of things, and I had to like unlearn a lot of things because, again, I think it's back to liberation, where I realized that like, because that's how I was raised, and because that's like where I found myself living at the time, doesn't mean I have to carry that on for the rest of my life. If it's no longer serving me, it's no longer serving me. And now I'm like an adult, and part of being an adult is a perk, being able to decide what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Right.
And so that's been like my process in the last, I want to say like 10 years, like actually unpacking and unlearning a lot of the conservative, like not only like perspective and opinions, but also the way that I present myself that is very conservative. So for example, like in Nigeria, like I would never cut my hair like this, right?
Interesting.
I just wouldn't do it. Like when I was in Nigeria, my hair was relaxed. I had long hair because the hair is the beauty of a woman, right? So I just had like long, relaxed hair, braided every 2 weeks, like very nicely kept, very like feminine identifying. So everyone saw me from a distance. They knew I'm a woman. And when I moved here, I think it was the year after I graduated university, I was like, my hair is not healthy. It's falling apart. It's breaking out. Like, it's no longer serving me.
Yeah.
And so I like took a scissors, like had a whole Britney Spears moment, took a scissors and just like cut my hair in my bathroom mirror. And I sent a picture to my mother, and she almost died. You know,
I bet you she died 5 times, actually.
Listen, she was very unhappy. For the longest time, if I sent her selfies, she wouldn't want to look at them because I had.
Oh, wow.
So I kept going shorter and shorter, and I went bald at one point. She was like, "You're just trying to kill me." She was just trying to kill me.
Damn.
Those were some of the things that I realized, like, oh my God, like this is part of like my programming, because why didn't I do it before? Why didn't I do it earlier? Or why, like, it also, like, even when I did it, there was still like this like tumultuous feeling around it, just being like, oh, like I'm no longer feminine, or I have like cut my beauty away, and like also some of like the things that I was just taught and raised and that was ingrained in me. And I feel like even some of my opinions and some of the restrictions we put on beliefs and limitations on beliefs and limitations on like our ability to expand in so many different ways, and like this like scarcity mindset as well. Like I've tried to really unlearn and unpack some of those things that are very, very much attached and tied to the conservative mindset in Nigeria. It's hard some days.
What do you mean by the scarcity mindset attached to?
So, for example, one of the things that's always bugged me was this idea of like your one true love, right? It's like you can never, like your soulmate. You only have one soulmate, and the soulmate looks like a man, and the soulmate identifies as a man, and the soulmate is the breadwinner of the family, and the soulmate has dominion, like has power over you, and the soulmate this, the soulmate that, the soulmate this. It's very much that's it, and that's your goal in life as a woman. That's what you're going for. And there wasn't, at least I wasn't raised with the expansiveness of like, actually, you can have so many other goals that have nothing to do with finding a soulmate or nothing to do with marriage. Not saying that that's a natural human desire, but that doesn't have to be the one goal in your entire life, right? And you can have multiple soulmates throughout your life. Like you can end up with one as a life partner, but that doesn't mean that you won't find multiple soulmates, or you won't find your soul in multiple people in your life. And so that's something that I've come to realize now in the last few years, that like I've met people that are not romantic, very much platonic, and they're my soulmate. Like I feel that soulmate connection with them. And that's something that I really struggle with, because I'm just like, wow, I feel like I've known this person my whole life. Even people I feel like I just want to connect with this person. Like I trust this person. This person is like amazing, and they're everything, and they support me in all these different ways. However, it's not a romantic relationship. It's very much platonic. And I feel so connected to them, like I would a romantic relationship. And I feel like our souls are connected, our souls are attached. But I wasn't taught that, like, you know what I mean? And so I've had to really learn a lot of that, and really like introduce new ways of like being to myself that isn't attached to some of those ideals.
Yeah. Do you think those are solely Nigerian ideals?
No.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I think a lot of the conservative nature comes from like religion, and I feel like I find a lot of those themes in a lot of religious, and when I say religious, I mean like Christianity or Islam, and a lot of religious cultures where, but obviously speaking as a Nigerian.
Yeah. Because like I know that like there's the idea that, because I spoke about Nigeria being conservative, and for some things, being conservative just means taking time, being careful. So do you think being conservative or conservatism is bad? And now this is just me going off of tangent. I never planned to ask this, but I was like, I know that sometimes I'll phrase things as like Nigeria is a very conservative place, but it's also a very collectivist place, which is what I find a lot of conservative, English is hard, man. Conservative places happen to also be collectivists.
What do you mean by collectivist? Sorry.
So like more about like thinking about the collection of us, the community of us versus like individuality. So that was probably one of the harder things I had adjusting culturally. Is going from a collectivist culture where, and probably also the reason I'm a big people pleaser, though, is coming from collectivism. Is like you think about everybody else, you don't really think about the individual, versus going to places like North America or like places like Holland where it's individualist culture. So you're looking out for yourself. To me, I'm biased. I still think it's important to look out for each other. But yeah, so that's an example of like something that I think is fairly Nigerian, is that collectivism to an extent, because classism is still, I think, our number one issue. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I had a harder time adjusting to.
That's a great question, and that's a great way to also phrase conservatism. Conservatism, yeah, I said it right? Okay.
Sure.
Listen, I think like framing something as bad or good doesn't serve us. I feel like we miss a lot of nuance in conversations, and also a lot of opportunity to like explore something more or go deeper. I think for the most part, it's both serving and not serving Nigeria. I feel like there needs to be a little bit of both. So I love the collectivism. So I love like the fact that we're very much of the people, and we're very much like a community. And you know, like the way I was raised, no one on the street goes hungry, right? So like everyone is like, if my family's fed, yeah, your family's gonna be fed too, and all of that stuff. However, there also needs to be room for people to have their for people to also be autonomous in a way and decide like, this is not serving me, right? And I don't think Nigeria allows for that. I don't think culturally there is a lot of room for that. And if you do decide to go there, then you are ridiculed or shamed. And that's why we still have an outcast system.
Right.
Where because you're not part of the collective, you're outcasted.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. And with adjusting to now being in Canada and like the liberal nature of it, and if I recall, your family is fairly conservative. I know that my parents are pretty conservative, and there are times where we will butt heads on things that for me, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and it could really be anything, but like how do you navigate, or if you do have conflicts with your family members about things that are usually intercultural, especially if they don't understand why you changed your views on things that they raised you to believe, how do you navigate those cultures with those conflicts with family members?
It's always kind of been my nature. So my parents just wait for the text, you know, they wait for the disagreement, because I've always just been that person to like question things, and decide that no, I'm not gonna do it. And they've always seen it as like being stubborn. And now they know that like, oh, part of what I do is fighting for Black liberation. So they associate it with my activism. They're like, oh, you're trying to be the activist in the chat. I'm like, my
parents always say you're trying to be the psychologist. I'm like, it's really not because I study psychology. Like, oh yes, the psychologist is here. I'm like, it's humanist.
Listen, my mom, honestly, she was like, sometimes your activism feels like terrorism. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not that serious.
Aww.
she and so I feel like I've always been able to speak freely and tell them, oh, actually, I disagree with you.
Right.
And I think the distance helps because someone can throw a shoe at me. So like I definitely take advantage of that WhatsApp distance where I'm just gonna type what I want to say and turn off my phone and then go to bed. And for the most part, my parents know that I'm going to always keep it honest with them. And if they ask me a question that I don't think that they're ready for an honest answer, I tell them, I'm like, actually, I don't think you're ready for this answer right now.
That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when I'm ready to tell them, I tell them. So there isn't anything, I don't like to paint a picture for them of that's not who I am. They may not understand, and I break it down really well for them. And my father always tells me, he's like, I will always support you. I don't have to agree with you. And that's kind of where we land in my father and I's relationship. My mother would not agree and also take a momentary break from me, which is also fine. But at the end of the day, we still realize that like my opinions and my beliefs are mine and hers are hers. And we can still coexist without trying to like bend each other to our wills. And that's how we are right now. So I never expect for them to like drop their beliefs. I mean, they're in their 50s and 70s now. I don't expect them to like drop their belief and just like, oh yeah, whatever my 20-something-year-old child has said is the truth, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Right, absolutely. That's valid.
Right, but I still plant those seeds and let them know that like we're doing things a little differently these days, and we're thinking of things a little differently these days. And here is your hot tip. I don't have to change your way about it, but now you know.
Yeah. Gotcha. So you spoke a bit about activism. Can you tell me, and like, since I've known you, you've heavily been involved in like equity and supporting equity seeking groups, and like that's really been your energy. So before I even ask you like what was the first thing that made you feel like that was where you wanted to put your voice, what things are you involved with? Let my people know.
Okay. Hey fans. So currently with my activism, I am involved with Black Lives Matter Vancouver. I've been a part of the collective now going on 3 years, 2 and a bit actually. And it's been one of the most rewarding and most exhausting things I've done in my life. I also do a bit of community organizing. So that's when you bring people together, especially predominantly Black folks together, and build community around different things. So that's also something that I'm really passionate about. And I also am a consultant with Cicely Blaine Consulting, and it's a diversity, inclusion, justice, and equity firm that does like workshops and training and like coaching for organizations and individuals. But we also run a yearly conference called Stratagem, which is a conference that prioritizes and uplifts lived experience as expertise when it comes to dismantling white supremacy and the patriarchy.
A lot, child. And the one-on-one conversations and all of that, because that's work too. Exactly. Yeah. What made you feel like you wanted to use your voice in this way and that it was important to you?
From a North American perspective, I would say that it was in 2009 when Trayvon Martin, I believe it was Trayvon Martin. I hate that there's been too many names.
Yes, I was like, I don't know when Trayvon Martin was. I feel like it might have been a little bit later, but I'm not sure.
I'm almost pretty certain it's Trayvon Martin.
I will go with you. There have been so many names.
I know, right? When Zimmerman was the police officer that killed him.
Yes.
And he was set free. And not only was he set free, Trayvon Martin was put on trial posthumously for his death. And that was, I remember being in my basement suite with my roommate. We shared a 1-bedroom basement. I know, we were young. And I just remember being in that basement and just yelling and being so upset because at first, and then I saw the police report, the coroner's report about the bullets. I think he had 18 bullet shots or something like that, a double digits number or something on his body. And I was just like, this kid was so threatening to you.
A child
had no weapon on him, and you had to shoot more than once into his body. You had to shoot it all into his body. And so that really upset me. And that was the moment that I realized that if it upset me this much, then I can join the movement. There's something that I can do about it. And I didn't know much about the history of like Black folks in Canada or even in the States. I didn't even know much about Blackness in this context at the time. And so I took my time to start little by little. I read an article here, an article there. I'll have arguments with friends about it. Because, Nigerians love to passionately argue. We're not fighting. Fighting. Like, no, we're just, we're having a debate. It's dinner.
Even when we're not having a debate, it looks like we're fighting. There are many times I've had to explain to people, hey, heads up, we just talk loud.
We just talk loud. Like I was in Toronto once, we're having brunch, and we're there for 3 hours. My friend and I were just going back and forth for 3 hours. Everyone at the table was just like,
what's going on here?
What's going on? And I was talking to friends, and I just realized that like this passion is still inside of me. And like I remember myself from a very young age also being very passionate around what's fair. My mom was like, you will always think this isn't fair. And so today, my mom's elder sister, my auntie, I don't like her. And I see this, not to throw shade at her, she's an amazing person, but as a young child, I was witness to her treating her like house staff very wrongly. And I stormed out of the house. I waited outside by the gutters until my mother picked me up, and I was crying. It was unfair. My mom was like, you had such strong convictions. And so I kind of like channeled that, and that became like, oh, you're a rebel, you're always like rebelling against things. And I was like, well, if I should reposition that now that I'm an adult, that's activism. And so I like channeled that into like my understanding of myself. And then when I came to Vancouver, I remember I didn't even know there was a BLM chapter, but just like, oh man, it would be so dope. I should join a community or an organization.
Yeah.
I think 2 years later or something, or 3 years later, I find out that there's a Black Lives Matter Vancouver chapter, and I applied. And I told my partner, I was like, I'm so excited. I hope I get it. I hope I get it. Like, would they accept me? Oh my God, I don't really know, but I'm ready. I'm ready. And here we are 2.5 years later, and I've done, as being part of BLM and being part of community, I've been able to influence a lot of things and build a lot of connections and help a lot of people, and also like unlearn and grow in ways that like I couldn't even dream about because I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, I've seen like just even in me knowing you over time, just like the immense growth. And like I love the fact that you're always willing to call my ass out, and I'm willing to be called out. But it's also very important that also one-on-one level, because a lot of times change will happen in that way too. There's like the larger scale, but then there's also just those one-on-one conversations, the arguments, the heated discussions.
You call my ass out too. You were the first one that introduced me to gender neutral pronouns. I will never forget.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize I was the first person. That's wild.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things too that, and I've seen you and I again have talked about this one-on-one, but with COVID-19 and everyone having to stay home and finally pay attention to the world and being like, wait, racism? Sorry, what? And realizing that there's just a lot of injustice in the world. I see a lot of times people will post things and it can seem like performative allyship. How do you accept or not accept that? And this is just for me, sometimes I'll see it and one day I'll roll my eyes and another day I'm like, hey, at least they're trying. Personally, how do you navigate that?
It's a lot. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm petty because I just like, I would just text friends or like, I'll send something to you on Instagram, like, look at this. Yeah. Like, you know? So like, I definitely have like my DMs that are petty that helps me like cope through those moments. Other times there is a little bit of appreciation because I know that like this global movement for organizations, it hasn't changed shit. And I say that very confidently. In no organization, they put their statement out to support BLM, they do all of that, Yes, cool. However, if you actually supported Black lives, you will not have to make a statement because your Black employees will come to bat for you. Yeah. And we will see it in all of your action that you've taken to date before this uprising. So, you know, and there's been a lot of organizations that have posted performative stuff and have been called out on social media and said, actually, last week,
this morning,
Exactly. And the city of Vancouver being one of them. And so it's definitely upsetting to see from an organization point of view that like, you're doing this now for clout. Because I remember before I joined Black Lives Matter, even when the movement started, I never knew what the whole fuss was about. I remember people being so mad that Black Lives Matter was even number one, an entity and a movement, because it was just like, oh, well, all lives matter, you know, like, and like, you're not saying that, you're only saying that now because people have said Black Lives Matter, but also the fact that we're saying Black Lives Matter is literally bare minimum. It's just like saying Black people exist. Like, it's literally just a step above existence to matter. So there was a lot of controversy, but now everyone is picking it up. Like, you know, the new trendy thing to say, BLM. Everywhere, every website I go, they have a BLM category. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, almost, I feel like I'm living in an alternate reality where I was part of this thing that was so taboo. And now it's like, it's almost being watered down. It's almost like how Pride started as a protest. Right. Silver Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, like, threw the stone at the police and started this riot and all of that stuff. And it was this huge protest. And then corporations picked it up and now this watered down corporate sponsored nonsense. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I'm feeling about the BLM movement. And I hate it because I feel like 10 years down the line is going to be this watered down corporate sponsored thing. And I'm really hoping that we stay radical and we stay grassroots, because that's actually how a lot of change happens, and you can demand that change that way.
Yeah.
On a personal level for individuals, I'm actually very hopeful. Like, I see a lot of change. Friends that have never said BLM, friends that have never posted anything about nothing but brunch and hikes. Honestly, and now posting things on social media and like actually going to like follow Black artists, like really like interrogate their like music, their art, their friendships, the things that like they buy, where they spend their money. People are realizing that like politics is a part of our existence. Like, yes, we all hate it, but that's just the life that we live in. And so like, if you're cool, you vote, you know, and if you're cool, you vote for liberation of everybody. So you make sure you vote right. And so it's definitely been a lot of huge personal shifts that I've seen, and I'm really happy about that. I'm really hopeful about that. But like organizations, they can miss me with the BS.
Right? Tell me what you're actually doing to improve the lives of your Black employees, and not just the ones who are like not in leadership positions, right? Or the ones who are in leadership positions.
Right. Show me your action plan, your budget, and your timeline. Then we can.
Yes. Big facts. I realize I've taken up quite a bit of your time, but I know that you talked a bit about souls and love and things like that. And I've learned from you. I know I've always, like before, I'm not saying before meeting you, I've always known that there were different ways in which people like loved each other and things like that. And I eventually will do a podcast episode on different ways people like show up in love and like what that looks like. But you are considered, and you are in a non-traditional, I put quotes versus like air quotes and stuff, relationship. Tell us about that. First of all, tell me about your love story, because your partner is a mutual friend of ours. I guess not a friend anymore, but when I met you, I knew your partner as well.
Yes. You know, I love love. I love talking about love. I can talk about love.
I know you do. You're gonna have your own love episode, girl.
Listen, I am here for it. Okay, so stay tuned, y'all. So yeah, my partner and you were friends. And I remember when I first found out that y'all were friends, I was like, okay, so yo, tell me the tea. Tell me about that. And then you were just like, you were like, they're cool. Like I have no bad tea to tell you. You don't have a bad reputation or anything. You're we met on Tinder. Okay, actually, that's a lie. We met in real life for the first time.
Okay.
So we met at Car to Go. That's where I used to work. For those that don't know what Car to Go is, it's a car share program that has since gone away, because we got another car share program called Evo that kind of drove them out of Vancouver.
Like drove them out.
Literally drove them out. And I used to work there at the front desk as a receptionist. Again, another fun job, because I was good at talking to people. And they walk in and they wanted to renew their like membership. I think they let it like sit stale, and they were like traveling around or whatever. They wanted to renew it. They just came back from Brooklyn, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I saw their name, and their name is Azuka, which is a Nigerian name. And I was just like, oh, you're Nigerian. Me being all excited and nosy. I was
of course.
Oh, I'm Nigerian too. And they're like, cool.
Nice, cool story.
Like, oh, okay, well, this is business. All right, we're gonna be professional. Cool. So I did what I was supposed to do. I gave it to them, and they had the sickest haircut. So they had like a reverse mohawk, where like the sides are full and they shaved down the middle.
Interesting. I did not see that look.
Listen, the sickest haircut. And so when they walked away, because the way the reception desk was spaced, people in the office can see reception. When they left the office, I turned to the office. I was like, did everyone see that? And everyone was like, no, we're all busy working. Like,
yeah, we actually work here.
Listen. And I was just like, wow, okay, everyone missed that haircut. And then I saw them on Tinder, and they're rocking a different haircut. And I saw them on Tinder, and I giggled to myself. I was like, oh my God, this person, here we meet again.
Yeah.
And I swiped right, and then we went on a date, and we've texted each other almost every day since then. And It's been 3+ years, almost 4.
Wow.
Yeah. And when we went on our date, we talked on the phone after the first date, and we're just like, how was that date for you? And I was like, you're all right, you're cute or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh yeah, it was cool. And then they were like, oh, actually I date non-monogamously. Do you know about that? I was like, I'm trying to date you monogamously anyway. I was just like, we're dating,
Yeah.
it's cool. And then I looked it up. I did my homework. I read articles. I listened to podcasts. Listen, I almost read a book. Me, I'm reading. We're not like that though.
Yeah, I was say you don't read books.
I almost read a book.
Okay,
That's
okay.
how my research worked. And I realized, like, wow, non-monogamous relationship and like ethically, what does that mean? And so we kind of figured it out together, set our boundaries together, and yeah, we just took it from there. And we've been non-monogamous since the jump, and it's honestly the most beautiful thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Look at you. Yeah, I've learned. I've been one of those people who's asked, so what does this part mean for you? Like, well, for us, very specifically, let me not speak for the world, ma'am, because the same way you wouldn't speak for any monogamous relationship. So that's been also a lot of learning for me. Yeah, but I will do an episode properly on like just like different kinds of relationships and the way people make them work. So you never know, you might be back on soon.
Listen, y'all
sooner rather than later.
Be back on here.
I know, you're gonna be a recurring guest, but I always say that again.
I said the fans are gonna speak the truth.
Yes. I always end every episode with the guest or my person having a question for me. So do you have a question for me?
Ooh.
And if you don't, that's all right.
No, I do. I just have to pick one. My brain just had like a brain freeze. I'm like, what? Okay. So everyone knows by now that Yoyo is happily engaged. And we're all joyous and very happy for both of them because you will are not only a beautiful looking couple, but like the love is so there and so strong.
Aww.
Okay. How did you know that you were going to marry well? Like, when was that moment for you?
That is a great question. Great question. When we first started dating, in my mind, I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, and he was always like, I'm very sure you are the person. I see you in my future. And I was like, yeah, future could also be tomorrow. So I guess we both see each other in each other's future. So I was like that person who was like not necessarily trying to commit to him. I was like, let me just get to know him, hang out with him. And he's always been known. And like, if you ask him, he can get married to me tomorrow and he will be fine with it. It took me a little bit longer to get there. And I think people talk a lot about like the moment you knew. I wouldn't say there was like a significant moment that I knew. I think I just, over time, just seeing how kind of a person he is. Like, I love the person he is. He's very kind. He's convicted. He cares so deeply about humans. Like he's quiet, he's shy. You won't ever hear this kind of stuff with him. I guess because you've had more one-on-one conversations with him. But he cares about like human. And when I say humans, humanity. So like, if I think about a lot of my learnings about classism have come from just talking to him about like who was left out of this conversation. A lot of the times it's poor people. And so just seeing those characteristics in him, and I was like, he's fine. And he's like, right?
And he is
just fine. Yeah, right? And like, come on now, calm down, man.
No, I'm saying because like listen, every gathering you bring Will to, everyone's like, oh my god, who's that person? My friend's partner.
Yes, my friend's partner. They are monogamous. Take notes. Yes, yeah. But yeah, like I think there were just a lot of characteristics he has, and he's always continuing. Like one of the things for me, my biggest fear is I have two biggest fears. Being stagnant in life, and I feel like he has been very supportive in pushing me to not be stagnant. He's very supportive. There are just a lot of great qualities I liked about him, and over time I was like, why wouldn't I want to marry him? Like, why wouldn't I want this in my life? And so there was a point where I was still playing around, and he was like, look, either shit or get off the pot. Like, I don't have time for these games. Like, I really like have goals in life to accomplish. And he was like, yeah, so take some time, think about if you really want to be with me. Feel free to lose my number for a week if that's what you want to do. And I was like, no. And I just started crying. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, that was the moment where I was like, okay, I think like I also see a future. I think I've just been playing around and having a hard time saying, yes, I see this. So those were the different moments in which I knew. And I was like, I'm sure. I know for sure.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I asked that question because every time people speak of a moment, and I always wonder if like they mean like a cluster of things, and like it's like it's not linear. You don't like go on a linear journey and then like this is the moment pinpointed and keep going.
Yeah, because there'll also be moments of doubt. Like I don't know who doesn't have moments of doubt, and so people are like, there was a moment that I knew, and I'm like, not gonna lie, I can't tell you for sure I had that moment, but also there are people who believe in one soulmate or things like that. I believe in like circumstances that like add up and line up for you to meet someone. So yeah, that's my fiance.
That's your fiance, husband to be.
Husband to be. Take note, everybody.
Yes, we're very excited. I've been prepping these questions because I listen to every episode. Yes,
I stand a fan.
If I'm gonna be on this, I'm gonna prep a question. So,
and you know what? Like these conversations continue, so I'm looking forward to having you again and just catching up and all of that.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Can you move back now, or?
I'm here for the time being, but we'll see. I might come back to Vancouver shortly to visit.
I've been trying to get you back.
Every time I talk to you, you're like, oh, so is this you calling to tell me you're on your way back? I'm like, actually, just saying hello like a regular friend.
You're trying to plant seeds. You know, when you're trying to plant seeds.
I love it.
Oh,
thank you.